What if music education were the key to breaking down racial barriers and finding true belonging in the classroom? Can one teacher transform an entire community through music? Meet Colette Stephens, the only African American orchestra director in Lancaster County. This is an interview I had with Colette in conjunction with a community and music class at Franklin and Marshall College. Welcome to Music on Tuxt. So I'm here with Colette Stephens, and Colette is the orchestra director and Voices of Freedom director at J.P. McCaskey High School here in Lancaster, PA, and we've known each other for quite a long time. And so here we are, and maybe just a little bit of context about your experience as a teacher in Lancaster and in the wider variety, being the only African American orchestra director in a public school system in Lancaster County.
Yes, there are times when I don't think about it.
And I want to also add, this is the Music, Education, and Social Justice class.
Okay, yes.
So
I have been teaching in the school district of Lancaster for about 26 years now. And I started at elementary school level for 10 years and taught students there, and then ended up at the high school the last 16. So you can do that math. And in my time here, like I just said, sometimes I think about it and sometimes I don't. It just depends on where I am. The fact that I am the only woman of color in our district teaching music. And then when I go to festivals with my students, like PMEA or county orchestra, regional, state, I look around the room and then it hits me. Oh, wait, I'm the only one here. And sometimes it makes me feel a little intimidated because I am. And then I have to talk to myself and encourage myself that have just as much right to be here and have earned the right to be here as anyone else sitting in this room. But it is a challenge sometimes for my self-esteem and confidence.
And then the other side of it as well is the demographics of the districts.
Yes.
The students that you bring to the PMEA conference, demographics of the Lancaster city as opposed to the county.
Right. What's interesting is the students that typically have participated in those festivals that are just an extension of their learning, they tend to be students who are Caucasian, who have studied privately, they have more training, their training is more advanced, where they can handle the literature. Thankfully, with county orchestra, it's a round robin process, which means the directors themselves select the students. So then I get outside of that demographic.
And let's talk about just briefly, I think the demographic of McCaskey High School, the Caucasian, I think, population is
it's small in comparison
under
to
10%, I believe, isn't it? Is it maybe?
It might be. I know.
10%.
Yeah. So the demographics is our Hispanic culture or population is the greatest, and then we have our white and African American population is so diverse. We have students who come from the Congo, different regions of Africa. We have students who are Nepalese. It's just so diverse. A lot of refugees, you name it, we have it.
Yeah.
And the representation of the music department itself, it's still, while diverse, probably more diverse than some of the other districts that we are surrounding us.
The importance of the music department, when you mention all those cultures, and the fact that music is this,
it brings everybody together.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can go into a math class or an English class,
right,
and that's going to perhaps
look a little different, which is something that we, I think, as a district have been trying to be more conscientious of and intentional about. When we offer higher level courses, shifting our mindset to also look to students of color and encouraging them to take those courses, looking at our numbers, how many students of color, looking at the facts, because sometimes we get so involved in teaching our content and everything like that it's an oversight, including and recognizing that there are students of color, like I said earlier about lacking confidence, who might not take that class because they feel like it's not for them.
Yes.
But they're perfectly and definitely capable of achieving in a course like that. So the teachers, the adults, being intentional about pulling in students of color into those courses.
Yeah. So that actually brings us to some of the questions. So that's a great segue into some of the questions that, like, the first question that kind of opened up everything, the idea that why are we even having this class at F&M is to bring up that idea of this music studio, music itself, just the barriers that have been erected in such a medium that is really to be very freeing. It's actually been very colonizing, for lack of a better term. So the idea of what kind of social justice, decolonizing the music studio or the classroom, and the attention paid to the systemic inequality that is going on within education and within music as well, which is education. But for me, there's a lot of things when it comes to education that come up where music does not quite align. But if you could address how you address those.
I know in one of my classes, for example, Voices of Freedom, if anything, it would be because of or through a piece of music that we're studying. And in Voices of Freedom, that's what the class is all about. It's all about studying music that is rooted and based in Africa and African American culture. Some of the topics that come up, like just yesterday we were singing a spiritual called Oh Freedom, and we talked about slave songs and work songs and just how those songs were used for a purpose. And the particular spiritual we were studying speaks to, one of the lines is, before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. So I go into depth about that with the students and just how the line is so deep in that someone would rather die than be enslaved. So we talk about the content or context of songs as it relates to race and like the slave era. One of the spirituals did not have a hidden message in it. It was just something I said I did research on. So just to show and model for the students that go a little further than what you're just given. Go do the research. And I do touch on not just musically, but also our community as a McCaskey community. I've talked about that, how we're perceived in this area of Lancaster County. We're the city school. And because of that stigma, automatically people are going to expect or assume that our students are a certain way. And I've always made it my goal to make it very clear to my students that you are not what they say you are. You are bigger and better than what they say you are. And when we go out and perform, that's the way we represent ourselves.
Yes.
And so that we can't, and I tell them, we can't help the way people choose to see us. And I think it's just something about this area that some people just don't want to see us any better than what they want, which is sad. But when we go out, we have the opportunity to show them differently. So in those situations, I do try to let them know, and I share my story, growing up in Philadelphia, coming here, so that they understand, like, where I grew up, I saw students like myself playing violin. I saw students like that look like me. I saw teachers that look like me growing up. And now, I share my story with them. I share my experiences with them when I go to festivals, so they understand what they could possibly encounter and probably already are encountering as children, right now. So, I don't hide that stuff. And I think I have an opportunity to be, go a step further than just teaching them music.
Just teaching
the
them
life
music.
lessons.
Yes, there's so much more in music.
And that's a door. It's a door to open up, to help to open up those conversations with the students.
Like what you were saying about the spirituals, like using those songs as lessons and beyond. This is not just music, and music is not just music. It is that. It's that all-encompassing vibration.
Just allows for those types of conversations to occur with your students.
Like that, when I was hearing about the spirituals that you were mentioning, and I learned so much working with Amanda, my wife, with her, with art, and how the spirituals and the freedom songs, how they would transition.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Wow.
I'm in a very unique situation in Lancaster.
Break it down. Break it down.
Don't know if it would be as unique somewhere else, but here, yes.
This is a unique environment.
Yeah.
Because even the population that you take in is so diverse. And then around us, it's...
And one thing I'm noticing about the group, specifically Voices of Freedom, Orchestra is diverse. All of our groups are pretty diverse. We have a good speckle of everybody in there, which is really nice. But I'm noticing when I first took over that choir, it was predominantly like black kids and some Hispanic kids, church kids. And I'm seeing it has evolved. And students who wouldn't typically attempt to be a part of that group are now starting to, not now, but over the last 5 years or more, have started to take the step and become a part of it. And I want to wrap the history. I want to wrap that into it to educate them about the style of music, that gospel music, spirituals, all of that. They just want to know. They want to be able to perform it and learn about it.
It's so great when you can have that heritage and maintain it, but take away the lines that have divided us and allow that
it's for everyone.
fluidity.
It's for everyone.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful to be able to share it, because that's part of who I am.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we have a few questions from a couple of the students. They're on the screen there. Anna Martinez, she asks, do you teach your students about social justice and equity? I think we answered that.
But the next one, how do you help your students recognize instances of injustice and inequality in music? Do you believe there are ways to address these injustices and inequalities? I don't recall ever doing something like that, but that question will definitely make me think about it in the future. Instances of injustice and inequality in music. I wonder if that could be interpreted different ways, like as far as music selection or inequalities as far as, because my first thought was music selection and what's out there, what's available to pull from. How do you read that, Michael? Because I'm thinking of that question, and I'm thinking about also like the injustices that do take place in the teaching. What you just said is a beautiful testimony to your own and your equitable pedagogy, which you always seem to be a part of. Right.
But I do recognize that, and I'm not sure, I'm sure a lot of the students in the class, and myself included, we have a white lens.
Okay.
I have a white lens.
Right.
That sometimes that
I feel like unfortunately music education has a white lens.
Yes.
And I can definitely attest to that. I spoke to that earlier about just festivals in itself. Just feeling you don't belong. It's pretty far removed from me culturally, but it's like all these different cultures. Orchestra itself is a culture.
But and the injustice and inequality in music, what you're doing with the idea of the repertoire. That's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Rather than just throwing at them a bunch of dead white composers.
Yeah, from Western music.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a way that you're doing it.
I think something else that has started to surface in my IB music class, that's International Baccalaureate, they changed the curriculum where before it was pretty much about like global music, but also Western European. And now the students have more choice. And so what I'm noticing is it's wrapping in their personal interests, which makes it diverse. And IB is all about diversifying the student.
Right.
And what they select and what they experience.
And you had that IB recital last year that I came to, and it was incredible.
The different pieces that were represented. And the
From
students bring more personal, like their ethnicity, they bring that to the table, to the
Yes.
learning. So that's something that I think I get an opportunity to talk about how the curriculum has changed and the direction of the curriculum with being more inclusive and less about what we think. Because some people even challenge students learning music theory.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like how that in itself can prevent someone, a student, who may not be well versed in that, but that's what you have to have when you go to college. But what if we have this really great student who might not be well versed in that, but they're just great musicians.
Yes. I know.
But they have to take the entrance exam and all of that
Right.
stuff. So we talk about that in my IB class because these are students who are trying to earn college credit to go on, and they take this class because, you know, it's going to prepare them for what they're going to encounter when they go to college.
Yes.
And I always tell my students, McCaskey is a different breed and you might experience some culture shock, but understanding that IB has made this shift, my hope is that we'll see that shift also occur at the collegiate level because they
hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
It's always been a challenge when I have students who have the experience in this department, but then they go on thinking they're going to study music, and it's not the same experience. It's very much more Europeanized, and they're just out of their element. And to the point where I feel like, am I doing them an injustice by not preparing them better for what they will encounter, which will be different than what they experience here.
That's what pocket are you trying to make them fit into?
Exactly.
And that's what I grapple with a lot, because are we willing to bend and change, or do we have to take your students from McCaskey and make them
mold them to fit this mold? And if I can speak personally, that's something I've done all my life to fit into this mold.
It's survival.
Yeah. And I think that's where the uncomfortableness comes from.
Yeah.
Because I can't be myself because I have to fit this mold or expectation of my colleagues and this culture, music education culture, to fit in.
Yes.
And that's what that's why I say, are we doing our kids an injustice by not teaching them how to fit the mold, or because then they go to school for music and then it's, I can't do this.
I know.
They're successful here,
yes.
But then when they leave, it's, I can't do this. And it's a culture shock in so many ways.
In so many ways. That's where, what is our role? How far do we shake up the system? Where do we go from here? And that's why I think classes like this and teachers like you and
it starts to have you break the mold. Think differently. Think outside the box. And the norm, it's been the norm for so long, but that doesn't mean it's the best for everybody.
Yes.
And that's what we want to think about. So as far as instances of injustice and inequality in music, I would say as a high school level teacher, the students transitioning from high school and this program to college, I speak about that all the time. Like what you experience here is going to be totally different than when you go to school.
Yes.
Music programs are not going to look like this. And then my thought process, and has been for years, is what do we do to get our kids prepared for that? And so it's a struggle. It's a struggle.
Yes. I think another way you embrace the injustices and inequalities are you actually are very receptive to having guest artists in, from all over, and like when people come in with music for everyone, you're always coming, or Millersville, or things of that sort, guest artists with the symphony.
Yes.
All different types of musicians coming from very various mindsets. So,
and even that, like when we had the guest conductor coming from Lancaster Symphony, I'm like, because again, it's like, what culture are you coming from? Like, and when I say culture, I don't mean like their ethnic, like their racial background. I meant, have you dealt with students from a city school like this? Like, how open are you?
Right.
To receive.
You're willing to take a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But for me, it's, what are my kids going to get out of this?
Yes.
I want them to see and experience as much as they possibly can. What can my kids get out of this? But I still have in the back of my mind, what are you thinking about my students? What are you thinking about? I know they're bringing some expertise to the table, but just praying that they're open to what they receive from the students and can walk away with something.
What they receive from the students.
Right.
So it's that exchange.
I'm coming to offer this, my expertise to you.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
I think we have one more question.
Okay.
And this is from Nora Clifford. What is your experience with parents of families from different backgrounds and their encouragement for their children to get involved in music? And then the second part, do you find certain children more likely to stick with music through high school if they come from particular backgrounds?
So I'll answer the second one.
Okay.
Yes, we do find, and we're actually, as a department, going to talk about this. And when I say department, our music department, all of the music teachers throughout our district, we have 13 elementary schools and 4 middle schools. So all of these teachers are going to come together because of that very question, the answer to that question, which is yes, we do find that there are certain families that stick with it more than others. Sometimes it's an economic situation. Sometimes it's just the values are different. Sports is more important, or there's a lot for students to choose from on campus. So while they may be heavily involved in elementary school, we start to see a decline when they hit middle school. So we're going to discuss what is it. We're going to look at some data, like I talked about earlier. What are the faces of our children? What do they look like? Who are we seeing dropping off? And really get down deep into the numbers and what we're seeing factually as far as what's happening, and then drawing some conclusions from there. So we want to tackle this problem where we have our retention is low.
Right. And
how can we change that? So I do find that there are certain children that stick with it through high school more than others. But I also think that we're starting to figure out how to retain. Because I think organizations like Music for Everyone, Michael, you going in and others pushing into the schools, creating that community,
right,
so that they see, you know, that it's possible, you know, throughout their schooling. I think that consistency, and then having a cohort of friends that they do this with.
Yes.
When they come to the after school program, that is something that's what they do. And that's what they're doing it with their friends.
It's actually a sanctuary space. Music can be that.
Yeah, it can be that.
Sports can be that. Music,
yes, because you're a team. It's not like a math class or English class. And I say this to my students all the time. In those classes, it's more individualized. Where with us, everybody depends on one another to create something. And it takes everybody's effort, everyone's input to make this final product. And we're all helping each other along the way. And there's something about that makes it special. And that's what music does. That's what teen does. So as far as that, the second question, yes, we do notice that. And I can't say specifically what the backgrounds are, just say maybe economically, there may be some issues there. Although in our district, students' instruments are provided to them, for them, so they don't have to rent or anything like that. They can borrow an instrument from the school district, and that's their instrument for the year or for however many years they're playing. So that's not an issue. It could be, but yeah, there's just so much that we're up against that could take their attention away from it. So we really have to sell it.
Yeah. I think it's also the way the music is presented.
Yeah.
The idea, rather than having music be something that you actually have, goals are great, but having it be a practice, a sanctuary practice that you have, and it's part of you. And that I think if we instill that still, but if we
change the philosophy,
impart it on them early, then it can, I have my music.
Right.
You know,
I have several students who've graduated and said, I really miss singing with you, or I miss playing. They don't realize it until after they leave, and it's, oh my gosh, that was like a good part of my day and my schedule that I took for granted. They realize it after they leave. But the earlier part, the first question, what is your experience with parents of families from different backgrounds and their encouragement for their children to get involved? Parents they want their kids performing. They want them playing, especially the younger students. After a while, the parent engagement and involvement starts to lessen because students become more independent. But yeah, definitely parents from, doesn't matter what background, they want their kids playing or singing. They love watching them perform. That's just, I'm a parent. You just want to see that from your kids. And I don't know what happens, like I said, parental involvement decreases a little bit because the students become more independent. So you're not having a parent of a third grader or fourth grader saying, you have to go, you have to. We don't really wrap the parents into practice and that sort of thing, unless you send a practice chart home or something. But yeah, I definitely see parents who want to keep their kids involved because they like seeing them perform.
Yes, I think there's a lot of support from the parents.
Yeah, no matter what the background, it doesn't matter.
And I think that probably speaks to something that might be a stigma or misnomer out there about city schools.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. That we don't have that kind of support.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that many times, like, from what I find in my own culture, I have to be open and shift to many different types of communication, you know, and be very open to that.
Right.
Embrace all different kinds of culture. The support and the communication is different.
Yes.
But it is the same intention. The love is there. The love and support.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And our community is so supportive. We see it every year, and it shows up monetarily. We go out, the students go out, and they ask for money. It's called Tag Day. And the community puts their money where their mouth is in regard to the music program. And it's just wonderful. So I said some things earlier about the stigma of the high school and the district, but we do have a large community of alum and community members who've been to our performances. And
I went to this school district.
And you went to this, that's right. And they support us. And I think that's the relational capital. That's where that comes from. Building those relationships, having a parent group that supports our students, no matter what. They're from all different backgrounds. And yeah, I hope that was helpful.
This was great. Thank you for...
If you need anything else, I'll definitely be willing to answer any more questions.
Hopefully you'll meet some of the kids when they do their field study with MFE, maybe come in here.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.